All right. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Andrew Dillard, and welcome to my codebook discussion for week one. So, without further ado, a little bit about myself. So, I'm actually in my fourth semester here at Marquette. I'm in a master's program around the healthcare data analytics. I've actually spent quite a bit of time in data analytics. I've been working for about 14 years as an analytics professional in various capacities across big pharmacy, pharmacy manufacturing, pharmacy benefit management, and yeah, and I've enjoyed it. I've learned a lot. I've seen the field of healthcare data analytics grow a lot in the last 14 or so years. Um, Prior to doing that, I actually got my undergraduate degree at the University of Wisconsin-Platteville in business administration. So, jumping into the code book and a little bit of background around what I'm planning on and what I'm anticipating doing for this project in this semester. So as I mentioned on the last slide, I have spent a lot of time in pharmacy manufacturing. And in particular, I work in a market access function, meaning doing a lot of the analytics around how do we bring our products as a manufacturer of prescription medications to the end user, which is the patient. What we have on this slide here is a really great illustration from a guy named Adam Fine. He runs a channel called Drug Institutes or Drug Channel Institute. It's a website where he provides a lot of commentary around the healthcare payer and access landscapes. And what we have on the screen is a visual of really his concept of follow the dollar. And in particular, it gets a lot more complex than we're going to focus on for this presentation. But for my project, I'm going to be focusing on an area around the GPO channel, which you'll see in the green box in the lower left corner of the infographic. Now, the GPO stands for Group Purchasing Organization, and what it is it's a collection of individual practices that kind of combine together to leverage their buying power to try and get additional savings and discounts out of a pharmacy manufacturer like my company. We have chosen to engage with this channel and component of the healthcare kind of payer landscape. And what that means is we are purchasing additional data sets from the GPOs. We are receiving roster information from the GEOs, meaning which practice, which locations belong to this particular GPO. And with that comes a lot of problems, especially as we look to incorporate this data set to a much larger data stream that we already have kind of internally within our organization. So some of those problems could be mismatching identifiers, meaning there are different identifiers that the GPOs and the member practices of the GPOs are using to kind of provide that unique ID. And that doesn't always align with our own internal mapping. There are overarching IDs like DEA or HIN or NPI, but there are inherent problems around those, meaning they can change frequently if you start prescribing under a different doctor, and it becomes a very big mess to try and take an external database that's being provided to our organization and trying to synthesize it and make it streamlined within our own data set. The data is often incomplete as well, so not every practice chooses to provide their information to the GPO for purchasing by the manufacturers. Oftentimes, IDs are missing, names are missing, other important columns that as an internal consumer of this data, I would be looking at to help evaluate kind of the marketplace and what's going on out there. I talked about the missing practices a little bit, and not really related to this project, but I thought it was worthwhile in mentioning just overall, the data is very expensive. Like many things, pharmacies and practices are realizing the value of data. And they're choosing to engage in selling that data at a very high premium and cost, which makes it more important for our organization to make sure that we're able to onboard this data, we're able to use it reliably, we can trust what the data is saying, and we can actually have it talk and kind of increase the visibility with other data sets that we have internally, which is one of the benefits that this GPO data does provide. It gives us that increased transparency around these practices. In some products, you could have 20 to 50% of your overall gross sales going through what we would call a community channel, which would be where the GPOs are playing. So basically anything that's not a hospital, not an IDN or would be kind of subject to a GPO. The data is a lot richer than what we have internally as well. It provides a lot more patient level data. We get it at a HIPAA compliant level, so we don't know who the actual patient is, but we have the individual patient records, what their treatment regimens are, what products were dispensed for them, and it provides additional granularity that allows our internal analytics team to do much more robust analysis on the data. It gives us a competitive market view as well under the additional market basket. So not only do we get data around our own particular product, we also get it around those of our competitors, which allows us to see market share. It allows us to see, line of therapy changes, utilization trends, all of those things which we can build into the broader data stream that we have and get a much more holistic picture around this area in our product. And finally, it allows us to get into that indication detail. And I actually thought it was pretty funny in the reading for this week's assignment that the examples that were given were really around the ICD-10 code. Those codes are something that as a pharmacy manufacturer analytics function, we use almost daily because our products kind of span multiple indications, meaning the FDA has approved the product that I work on for a number of different therapies and treatments. It's important for us as we look at our data to understand, is the patient that we're looking at in this claim record, under diagnosed with diagnosis X or diagnosis Y or diagnosis Z, which allows us to get back to that increased transparency and overall better understanding of the marketplace, which allows not only our analytics team, but our marketing team, our sales teams to be more effective and engage where prudent. So kind of a background around what I'm looking at and what I'm doing right here. I'm going to jump into kind of the proposed code book on the next few slides here. And what I have is really 25 different proposed columns that really looks to solve the issue that we have around taking those GPO rosters, which are provided to us by the GPOs, and marrying that source up with our own internal practice and mapping IDs so that we're able to have kind of this look across multiple data sets and understand exactly which practice we're talking about. So a lot of what you'll see in this code book are around account identifying information and variables like that. So starting out with this master account ID, this is an internal ID that we have that really provides a one-to-one number for practicing location or dispensing location. Proposing to store this as a decimal is how we do it internally today, up to 38 characters in length. Then we have some additional IDs around SAP ID. So when they purchase our product, a different system incorporates a different ID around finance. That's what the SAP ID field is here, storing that as an integer. It's important for us to know which GPO practice this belongs to. So in the source field, it will have the name of the overall GPO. On the GPO rosters, there's often a unique identifying field at the individual practicing location. That would be the GPO ID. Occasionally, multiple practices are organized under what we'd call parent ID. So if there's a parent ID involved, that would be listed there. And then occasionally, even the parent IDs get rolled up to a broader level at a grandparent under a similar legal and contractual structure there. So we'd bring in the grandparent ID just to make sure we have the entire continuum of GPO roster IDs here. Then getting into the name of the practice, where that practice is from an address, city, state. On the next slide here, the practice zip code. Now, the practice is important because that's the actual practice that is dispensing the location. It's not always the same as the actual pharmacy that is dispensing the medication. There's a slight nuance there. So we want to make sure that we are capturing that prescribing pharmacy account information as well. So we have those unique fields here around the HIN, the DEA, the NABP. All of those are kind of third-party or governmental associated IDs. We have the facility name, address, city, state, zip. Within a GPO, depending on the size of the practice, there's different benefits that could be provided to those member practices under different membership levels. And that's what we're trying to capture here under the membership type field. And then here on the last part of the code book, really just kind of rounding out this, we're wanting to understand the practice type and the specialty. So there could be different specialties and practice types, whether they're a group practice or an individual practicing location, that could have different specialties, like an oncology clinic or a urology clinic or an immunology clinic. Those are all the types of information that we're looking at capturing here. Probably most importantly, to make sure that there is a continuum of affiliation here, providing an effective date and a term date for when that member practice actually joined the GPO, allowing us to understand, did practice X join GPO on this date, and did they move to a different GPO on this date, just so we can keep our records clean and we can help to do any sort of contract management with the GPOs as well. And then lastly, just an ingestion date. When was this record changed or added, just for making sure that we are keeping the database clear, clean, and efficient for everybody. So the last part here is really around the why. I talked a lot about this. The GPO segment is very important to a pharmacy manufacturer. You could have anywhere, like I said, from 20 to 50% of your gross sales going through these individual community-based practices. It's very important that as a manufacturer, we have a firm grasp on our performance, key competitor performance, and the data is very messy. The GPOs are not at all data advanced or sophisticated with transferring of data. Therefore, we've had to do a lot of work to bring them up to what we would consider kind of the industry standard for our particular organization. So I'd love to hear your thoughts, your comments, any feedback you have on this topic, and I look forward to working with you guys this semester. All right, thanks.